How are you doing, everybody? I'm starting up a different type. I hope I have this on my right channel. I thought I would talk about adding pigs to your farmstead. I know it's a lot of fun to see livestock in the pictures, and I know that's exciting to have them in there. I actually have raised hundreds of thousands of pigs in my life. I've been on a lot of big operations and farms, but I started out helping my cousin, or distant cousin, Paul Cook, back in Illinois, how to raise pigs, or raising pigs in an outdoor setting. And back then, we actually farrowed the pigs, the sows, inside, and then once the pigs were, a week old, then we would kick the sow and the litter out, and they would go out into the A-frames out in a pasture. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of challenges and things along that line. I can take these pig farming, and maybe I will, videos to an infinite level of complexity to help you become a very good pork producer, whether you're raising one as a pet, or you're wanting to raise one to feed your family, or maybe even raise a few of them to sell and perhaps make money through either selling the hog, taking a hog to the butcher shop, and then they distribute it out to your customers, and so they're basically paying for the services and that type of thing. So there's a lot of ways to go about it, but I do know that being a pork producer since I started when I was 13 years of age, and I raised pigs clear till I was 45. So I have, or 50. So I have actually 50 years of age. So I have a lot of experience doing that. And I think I can talk about it. If you're thinking about getting this cute little pig, I think I can talk about it, and let's get into a little bit of things to watch out for before we get into it. I do have a chat line open, and I understand we're a small family farm still, but I do have a chat, so if you want to drop some information in, I'm happy to take that. And let's get to it. Let's talk about what some of our topics are going to be, adding pigs to the farm. And so let's go ahead and before we go on to pig space requirements or pig in its pen, let's keeping pigs in its pen. But let's look at the most important thing, and I'm going to come back to it, but I want to look at you. I want to look at you in the eye and understand there is a genetic trait of some pigs, being what they would call, it's called PSE pork, or pale, soft, and extrudient. And you can see this in the grocery store. Perhaps you ate some PSE pork. If you ever ate a pig and you said, my goodness, this thing is shoe leather. As a matter of fact, shoe leather would taste better. It's a chance you got some PSE pork. So let's go ahead and take a look at it here. If we look at the picture on the left, as this is what a normal pig should look like, and PSE, the same meat, it has a tendency to look like that on the right, where it has lost its moisture content. It becomes dry, and I'm going to look at you again here, but one of the ways to test pork in the store, if it has PSE, is to look at the package of pork chops in your hand, push on the pork chop, and what will happen is the pink color in the pork chop will turn white. That's normal. But when you release your finger, it'll be white, and then it should return back to a healthy flesh tone. So this particular pork will not ever return to a healthy pink flesh tone. It will be tough as nails. It will not be tender, in my opinion. I've had it before, and to me, this is common with some very heavily muscled type of animals. It does not mean that a heavily muscled animal will have PSE pork. But back in the 90s, we started bringing in some different genetics. Pietrin, we started bringing some different genetics of Hampshires. Those are the two types of pigs that, in my experience, we first started seeing the animals having this type of meat problem. A lot of times these types of pigs also will be very stressy. The great news about hogs, when I was a boy, I would say it was average that a farmer could, with 2 litters a year, if you farrowed in the fall and farrowed in the spring, that out of those 2 litters that you'd be around 14 pigs per sow in a year. In other words, 7 pigs weaned each litter. That's kind of where it was at the time when I was around 13 to 15. So early 70s to mid 70s. By the time I quit farming, we were running 29 pigs per sow in a year. Now we were running confinement. In other words, they're inside of a building, and we're actually getting an extra 3/10 of a litter every year out of the sows. In other words, the number of farrowing days on a pig from the time you breed her, on the gestation days from the time you breed a pig, it's always been considered 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days, or in other words, 112 days to get a litter born. And if you're going to keep that litter for 4 weeks, it used to get down to 19 days, but I think 28 days is the proper number of days you're going to keep a piglet suckling, and then you're going to wean that pig into a wean to finish building now, and then from that time on you basically are starting out with a 17-pound pig, and he's going to go on up towards 30 pounds or 300 pounds. We're going to talk about that after a bit, but 2.3 litters per sow per year, that's kind of the ballpark way to go. But if you're raising pigs for yourself and you're going to farrow outside, there's a lot more to it, but I'm just giving you an idea how much pig farming has changed. And when I saw the change is some of these newer genetics or newer breeds, they actually end up there where the pig is very stressed, where you pull him out of the pen and he's walking down the aisleway and you start seeing him shake and his whole body's just, he can't, well, I think that was PSE pork, is pale soft extrudient. I think that they just couldn't, they needed to take a chill pill, medically speaking. It was in their genetics. And a lot of the good farms, the big companies, the companies of today, good breeders, they have checked the DNA of their breeding stock, and they've worked out the PSE out of these hogs. And if you're going from a neighbor to a neighbor and word of mouth, well, you'll just have to take, I guess, his recommendations. But PSE pork is a real issue here. It will give you bad pork, and it's nothing that you could do other than change your genetics. That's the way that goes. So let's look at some breeds of hogs, and I'm going to list 3 of them. But this is a large white. He's one of my favorite breed hogs of today, whether you're talking commercial or family farm. I like the large white, and I like him crossed, the large white crossed with the landrace. You notice that the landrace has floppy ears compared to our large white has erect ears. Now I grew up with the Yorkshire Hampshire cross. But in today's mind, I got away from Hampshires. I think there's all around we can do a lot more with the landrace large white cross female, and turn right around and artificially inseminate or breed back to either I like the Pietrin cross, Pietrin Duroc spot, that type of a cross. But let's get into it. But what's common with homesteaders, homesteaders and family farms and people who just want a couple pigs is the Poland China / Berkshire hog. This is a common pig, spots. The pig that I'm holding in my hand, you'll see he's got spot. That's actually also a Pietrin trait in him. And so we have the different breeds that are available to us to get what you want out of your pig. What do you want out of it? But if you're going for 13 pigs born alive, wean 11 of them, then you're going to want to be looking at these landrace large white crosses. If you're dealing with pigs that are doing 7 pigs in a litter and those types of things, well, I'm telling you, there's other genetics out there that'll get you where you want to go. But just to paint that on there, let's go ahead and keep going. I don't want to keep it. We have different size, different space requirements when we look at our pigs, and to the picture on the left, we have a confinement type of a space, and of course the picture to the right, we have our Berkshire spot pigs, and they're outside in the woodlot pasture. And there's personally myself, there's an advantage to both going both directions in it, but what really determines the size and space that you're looking for, and generally speaking, what producers have done is you start out pigs enough in a pen, because remember, when it comes down to winter time, that sometimes having the animals a little crowded can be to your benefit, because those animals are all putting out heat, right? So it'll help heat up the room. You don't really want to run heaters in your finishing pigs at all. What you really want to do is just tighten up their living space and then give them the ability to go into bigger spaces and that type of a thing. That's what we've always done in my life there. The pigs are very well capable of handling the different environments if we give them. But what determines the square feet? And it's really going to depend upon size. Here on the picture, we got an ice of the Mercer County 4-H, a young man, won grand champion with his market hog. And we can see that the picture on the right where the animal has excellent muscle. You notice how the back of the hog is nice and flat, and they're stocky, they're well built. And this pig is definitely a champion as we look at it, but it's also going to be very lean. And how you determine that, and I believe we're looking at a beef carcass. That's the picture I got, but that's okay. We can still look at it. It's determined by back fat at the 11th rib. When you cut open the carcass, you want to look at the 11th rib, and you're going to decide how much fat can this animal take. Because as a producer, we're not selling a pig. We're selling pounds of meat. That's what I want, or even better, pounds of lean meat. That's what it really comes down to. So we get into raising pigs and looking at them. Well, some pigs are only they're gonna get fat at 220 to 240 pounds of weight. These are pigs that are basically, in my mind, dating back prior to 1980s genetics. If we look at our more European breeds that commercial operations are using today we can have a pig that is so efficient in its eating that it's not putting on fat. At 250 to 300 pounds, that pig has only 4/10 of back fat on the back. That picture I showed you, it's shown almost an inch of fat at that stage, but not in today's genetics, not in good genetics that's available out there. Is we can get genetics that can allow the animal to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they can hold that weight. So the pork chops are getting bigger. The amount of tonnage or the amount of pounds of lean meat is actually expanded. So all of a sudden, one hog that we used to be able to sell between 220 and 250 pounds is now being sold at 300 to 350 pounds. And they are still within the limits of back fat. That's what I'm trying to get to when we talk about size and square feet of space, is how much room do we have, and what is the genetics of our pigs in that we're actually growing. And the pigs to the left look like that large white land race type of a cross. You see that they are all that European type of a look to it. And these are all pigs that can probably continue to grow and gain muscle as they go. The space again depends on on its size. So when we look at square footage, if you're working with pigs outside and you got 40 acres and 5 pigs, you got plenty of ground. Let me tell you, you got plenty of ground. But let's look at also the space of sleeping requirements. So let's get into something like that. That if we're looking at the largest animal that a pig's going to ever be, and that would be a sow, a full-grown sow, parity 5, in other words, 5 litters, where that animal will be up towards 8 feet in length, and it'll be 2 feet in width, more or less. That'll certainly fit it, 15 inches in width. So if we're going to go ahead and say, well, it's 2 times 6, 8, so we're at 16 square feet minimum. In all reality, this animal would require 20 to 25 square feet in space for it to lay down into a pen. That's our minimum requirement. If we're looking at finishing pigs, well, now we're looking at a 300-pound finishing pig. We're actually looking at probably around 11 square feet per pig to get it up to that stage. So we need to be thinking 11 square feet per pig. That's how much space he's going to grow into. So let's get into another aspect of it, and how do we hold the pig in it, and keeping the pig in the building is very important. And a lot of the big farmers have gone toward concrete and steel, and for good reason, because a pig is very good at getting out of its pen. If you're gonna go with the fence, then you certainly want to have that fence very strong. Make sure that the fence goes all the way to the dirt. It has to go all the way to the dirt, and it wouldn't even. And if it's a place that you're going to keep pigs going into, it wouldn't even hurt if you add a little bit, up to 2 foot more fencing, and hog ring that to the bottom of the fence, so when the pigs go to root, they can't root underneath of your fence. That would be an important aspect of it as well. So that's a good one there for folks to pay attention to. So, but steel and concrete you can't beat. If you're going to go with wooden fence, now the downside to wood, and when I was a boy, we used a lot of wood gates and wood things like that. Outside pigs are probably more likely to go ahead and get lice and mange, and it's a very irritable little booger, and they can live in the wood. They can lay eggs in the wood, and so each group of pigs that come in, well, they scratch up against the gate, and they can take these mange and insects with them, and have kind of a tough time with it. Whereas with concrete and steel, it's easier to wash, it's easier to keep your pens clean, and to get the animals away away from the lice and mange. So there's some advantages to that as well. But it doesn't mean you have to do it. I raise pigs outside a lot. And let's see here. So keeping the pigs in the pen. So when we look at pig feeding, and I've already shown you the picture to the left, but the pigs are generally from the time the pig is weaned to the time that pig goes to market, the pig would be what they would consider on full feed. Now, granted, a baby pig may only eat, a quarter pound of feed in the first day, whereas the longer it goes, you have a pig that's now eating up to 3 pounds to 6 pounds of feed per day in their diet. And I think that's something there that we need to understand, that is a lot of feed for you to maintain. And throwing out a melon to the hog and throwing out some meat scraps to the hog is not going to take the animal very far. So we need to think about having a good balanced diet. Now, K-State has some outstanding recommendations based upon size for that pig in its growth. And the cheapest way is to certainly have your own corn that you can grind up or have ground up to feed that pig. But if you're going to buy commercial, I'm going to say that it's going to take over 700 pounds of feed from the time you start out as a feeder pig to the time you get it to market. The prices of feed I see in Orchlands today and things like that, you may want to consider getting a bulk bin or talk to your I would certainly talk to your feed supplier. Go up to your cooperative, your co-op, or anybody that does that, and see how cheap you can get your feed. Certainly the big companies are getting feed literally down to the pennies size, but you don't want to be getting in to $1 a pound that some of the box stores want you to pay. I mean, now you're looking at a very good feed conversion on just using it as a rule of thumb is, say you're doing 2.5 to 3 pounds of feed to get to 1 pound of gain. So say, and this is in the finishing stages, but let's just say we're going to use that 3 pounds and we got a piglet that's 15 pounds at birth, and we're going from 15 pounds, we're going to take it up to 300 pounds. So we're basically adding 275 pounds of feed into that animal, or of weight, 275 pounds of weight. So let's just round it to 3. We're literally looking at 900 pounds of feed to get to that pig to be at market, using that as a 300 pounder as a rule of thumb. And what you don't want to be doing is paying $1,000 to get a pig to market when they're only going to pay you $150 for that market hog. So these are things to think about when we're getting into it. And feed is a real issue. Feed is a real issue when you get down to it. You need to have a game plan. It helps to have a grain bin that they could bring a truck out and you dump 1,000 pounds of feed or 3,000 pounds of feed into the bin, and you can bucket it out or auger it out or things like that. That's just the reality of where we're at with the feed requirements. There's all types of ways of going about it, and certainly having a pig to kind of clean up some of the scraps. And I have a lot of small sweet corn and things like that it would be very nice to have a pig here, and I could supplement I could throw him some of my leftover sweet corn that are the small ears, and I could feed it to my pigs and let them eat all of that, and add them a little bit of the other more expensive feed and that type of thing to supplement. So I could save money in those respects. But dumping a lot of tomatoes out for the pigs to eat, which they would gladly eat, it wouldn't offer enough nutrition to get the animal off to market in a timely basis. Now, there's a lot that goes into this type of stuff, and I see I don't have anybody on my chat, and that's okay. I know we're a new group of people, but as time goes on, I want to talk about this because I do see a lot of people who really enjoy watching pigs in their pens and things like that, and they are cute little things, when they're born and everything. But there's a lot that actually can go into it, and a person just wants to be prepared. You want to know where is your market with the pig, even if the pig is your pet. Even if you're going to have a pig as your pet, they can be quite destructive. And I literally know of a child who had a 4-H project, and they had their pet pig. It was a barrel, in other words, a castrated pig that had gotten up to 700 pounds, and they had just kept it behind their house. And this the name Charlie. And Charlie he got out one night and he went into the neighbor's yard or one of the neighbor's yards who had a very beautiful lawn, and with those noses on a pig, and it's no wonder they're so good at getting out from underneath fences, and he rooted into that beautiful lawn, and it was, I guess, eating grubs and things like that in the lawn. But he created 500 potholes in just every time he'd walk. He'd turn up the sod and look for a worm, look for a grub, doing what pigs do. And needless to say, there was a very angry neighbor by having Charlie in there. So a lot goes into it. I'm happy to help anybody out there with their pig questions and that type of thing. I'll certainly reply to any comments. But thank you very much for watching. And if you like these types of programs, please hit that like button and subscribe and come grow with us.